Welcome, everyone, to the Farsight Spotlight for today. And let me see, today is the 12th of January. Let me tell you that we have sort of a really interesting spotlight today. This is the weekly stuff that happens at Farsight. What I'm about to tell you today is right off the charts. And it's designed to help you understand and to believe that what I'm telling you is the truth, and what I have been telling you is the truth for a very long time. And I'm going to be offering you proof. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to accept the proof, but it is the proof. And if you want to accept it, that's good. My side is a free will side. My side, the ETs on my side, we're free will people. And we have to just let you accept whatever you want to accept. But let me tell you basically what's going to cover today. I'm going to go through a little bit about the art of war and why you need to know that the war has actually already started. The war for the fate of humanity has started. It's not disclosure that's coming in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's a war. And it's happening now. And I have to tell you a little bit about the players, including myself. Some of the stuff that I'm going to tell you today, I have kept secret. I just don't want people to talk about it or know about it, but I've been told our friends, our ET friends, just tell us we got to have no secrets anymore. They're telling us no secrets anymore. They want everything out. So like I swallow and I say, okay. So, all right, we're going to do it. Let's talk a little bit about the war, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am and who we are at Farsight. And I'm going to give you some evidence that I would consider proof that what we are is really what we are, and who I am is really who I am, and hoping you can connect the dots and say, holy mackerel, this is really for real, and that means the war really is going on. Right now it's not a super hot war, but it's starting. The ET ships that you've been seeing, the drones, so to speak, my side doesn't like calling them drones, but the ET ships that you have seen, there are some actually legitimate drones that are manufactured by the U.S. government. But that's not, that the ET ships though are for real, and they're not manufactured by the U.S. government, and they're the ones that started this whole thing. So let me give you a little bit of a background for sort of evidence for war and interpretation. And I'm going to be talking a lot about PSYOPS today. PSYOPS are really important. Farsight is a PSYOP. I'm participating in a PSYOP. The bad ETs are doing PSYOPs. The good ETs are doing PSYOPs. Truth can be a PSYOP. Truth is an extremely powerful PSYOPs, but also falsehood and lies and deception. That can be a PSYOPs as well. PSYOPs is when you're trying to influence humanity, when you're trying to change humanity in some way. It's a psychological and military manipulation of the public that is trying to get the public to believe certain things for certain goals. All religions are PSYOPs, political campaigns are PSYOPs, and definitely the bad ETs that are opposed to my side, they have been operating as PSYOPs for a very long time. My side is, I call them free will fanatics. They're free will fanatics, and they've been operating a PSYOP on their side, and we are part of that, and that's called the truth. The truth is an extremely powerful PSYOP, and one of the reasons they're telling me no secrets of any type at all is we have to convince all of humanity that we're telling you the truth. So let me talk a little bit about PSYOPs that are going on now, and then I'm going to get into the art of war, and so you can see what's actually happening. When we had our board meeting on November 13th, and they told us, our ET friends told us right at the board meeting, that's recorded and you can still watch it, it's got almost 100,000 views now, that the ships were going to show up like right away. They were going to start showing up, and they wanted everybody to see. You don't need special camera equipment, you don't see anything. We published it on the 15th, and on the 18th, the drones, as they so call it, started blowing up all over the place. The U.S. government came up with a crazy idea, first of all, to try to explain it. They said, I've laughed about it before, I told you, that they initially they told the congressman, and the congressman actually took it in and announced it on the news, that it was an Iranian drone using I'm sorry, I'm still laughing about it. That there was an Iranian mothership launching these drones using Chinese tech. Anyway, that lasted about 2 hours, and they canned that and said no, and they don't know what it is. They do know what these things are, what these objects are, but now recently there was a interview on the Sean Ryan, SHAWN, then Ryan, RYAN, Sean Ryan podcast. You can see it on YouTube, where somebody came on who is a whistleblower and talked about the guy who was driving the Cybertruck that blew up in front of the Vegas hotel that was owned by Donald Trump. And that guy apparently had sent some messages before he shot himself, supposedly, and had I guess the truck drove automatically in front of the hotel, parked itself, and then blew up. And the messages were saying that these were Chinese drones, and the Chinese have a mothership, and they were launching these drones all over the place to let everybody know that they can hit anywhere in the United States at will, and this is a threat for World War III. Now, it was very convincing and very interesting, but it was a PSYOPS. The Chinese have no motivation to launch drones all over the United States. There's just no motive. There's no motive for them to do that. They're an economy-driven country. They're concerned about Taiwan, but they're not concerned about launching drones all over the place. It was an attempt to sort of distract people from what's really going on. Anything that can take you away from the idea, from the understanding that a lot of the ships are simply ET ships. Without transponders, no heat signature, flying at will all over the place. Some of the videos that are recording, you don't need the special equipment anymore like we've been telling you how to use with high frame rates and infrared. You can just use any old camera, including your cell phone cameras, and that's what they want. They want no secrets. They want people out there. And the government is crazy, not wanting people to think about it. So talking about them like they're Chinese drones launched from a Chinese mothership, that's one step away from the original story that they came up with. That was an Iranian drone with Chinese tech. So now it's an Iranian mothership with Chinese tech. Now it's a Chinese mothership with Chinese tech. But it's a variation of the same story that they tried. So that's a PSYOPS. That's what's going on. You're getting a PSYOPS or something like that. And there are people who are trying to gear things up for battle, for war. They make a lot of money with war. And so that's going on. And so that's the current explanation. Now, Donald Trump has said he's going to be talking about what the drones are the day after he's inaugurated. I don't know what he's going to say, but he's probably being told that story. So I don't know what he's going to say, though, but that's probably the story he's being told, and that may be what he ends up saying, because I'm not sure he'll know anything about it. But what is it with all these PSYOPs? Okay, now after I talk about the PSYOPs, I'm going to talk about my health. I'm going to be talking about who I am and giving you an idea, actually proof of who I am with regard to me, so that you can get some indication that I really am who I am, and I'm trying to tell people who I am, and have you sort of believe it if you want to connect the dots. I'm obviously, everyone's noticed it by this time. My ET friends, they tell me, Courtney, you can't hide it anymore. You just got to tell people. I'm obviously aging at an extremely slow rate. Extremely slow rate. So I have to explain that to you so I can explain who I am. All right, but first let's go into the art of war. And then I will give you some medical stuff about myself and show you what my aging rate actually is. And I will show you proof of what my aging rate actually is, and tell you why it is the way it is and why I have to be the way I am in order to do my job. Okay, let's talk about the art of war first. I have some notes here, but you'll really like hearing this stuff about the health stuff. It's really cool. It deals with medical stuff that you'd be surprised about. All right. I'm going to be quoting Sun Tzu. It's S-U-N, like the sun, and Tzu, which is T-Z-U. Now, he wrote The Art of War, of course. Most of you probably know that. And one of the things he said is, to subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. Now, acme means the peak, the best of skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. Now you have to understand that the ETs, both the good side and the bad side, know that, and it's an absolute truth. What people like to do is they like to not fight things. ETs don't like to fight wars with ships. They lose ships, they lose personnel, they lose a lot of resources. Fighting ships, stuff like that, is not good on anybody's side. If you can subdue the enemy without fighting, that's the best. So PSYOPs come into this, and the ETs consider the investment of resources in PSYOPs to be absolutely minuscule compared to the investment of resources with actually fighting. And when you fight somebody, you have to restrain them afterwards. So you have to keep pumping in military resources, and you're not getting a willing person. What you really want is to conquer somebody and then to control them afterwards so that they do what we want them to do, basically to be your slaves. That's the art of war, and to get them to do it voluntarily. That's the art of war. So that's what Sun Tzu is talking about, to subdue the enemy without fighting. Now, as far as the bad ETs are concerned, I've told you many times, they have complete control over the political elite. Now, I don't know about Donald Trump right now. He's sort of he's a live wire. But in terms of all of the political elite we've had, is going back as far as you can think of, the bad ETs have them all locked up. Everything from bribery to mental manipulation to everything you can possibly think. However, and I'm hoping Donald Trump's going to be different. He's a disruptor. That's a technical term. He goes in and does things differently. So I'm hoping for the best, but you're not going to be saved by any one human, no matter who they are. It's going to be a mass movement from below that's going to be doing this. So the bad ETs consider psychological stuff, PSYOPs, to be an absolute first use of controlling a population. Do that first. And it's so much cheaper than military resources. So for them to control the channeling community, the New Age community, is a dream. Because the New Age community is way more important than anything you think about. It's not just people hanging around in New Age bookstores. The influence of channels, many channels, some of them are hugely influential. Movies have been made about them and everything. It seeps through indirectly into all sort of cracks of life, into Hollywood stuff and everything. And if you can influence the information that's coming out from them, you can influence sort of the way a huge level of society works. So they have invested, the bad ETs have invested a huge amount of efforts into making the channeling community dance like puppets on a string. And the channeling community is very susceptible to that. And I'm talking about the biggest channels that you know. Do I have to really mention names? By the way, we have in a little while, just about where we've had some things that we're dealing with right now. But in just a few days, we're going to have a new project coming out called the ET PSYOPs. And we're talking about two particular extraterrestrials who we consider are involved in PSYOPs. That's not unusual. Everyone's involved in a PSYOP. And we wanted to know more about them and their supervisors and stuff like that. And that'll be coming out, in just a few days. But the basic idea is, it's just too tempting. You have these people opening themselves up and they innocently, and the human channels are perfect people. They're innocent people. They're angels. They're tremendous. They're really doing what they're saying, what they're doing, and they have tremendous telepathic skills that are really hard to be good at. And they're just opening themselves up, though, and they don't know anything about really the people they're channeling. The people they're channeling are coming from civilizations that have had millions of years in terms of how to deceive populations. It's not, and the channels are just completely like babes in the woods. They're just completely vulnerable. There's no way to vet or to interview the people that you're actually channeling. And the people that you're channeling are coming through like totally innocent. And so the beings that are being channeled enter the body and then use the brain and animate the body, and they talk. And the actual person, the actual channel, sort of is sidelined. The human channel is sidelined for a while. They're not responsible for anything that's being said. And so the bad ETs have said this is way cheaper than pointing a gun at everybody's head, and much more effective. So if they started like years and years and years ago, decades ago, and keep the information coming out, they basically come up with, and now you're going to be listening, how many people in the New Age community have said all ETs are good, and it's just a whole bunch of loving, fuzzy-wuzzy people out there in the galaxy, and the only problem is humanity. Humanity doesn't have the balls to sort of just recognize that the extraterrestrials exist, and all we need to do is be brave enough and look at them, and then the entire warm and fuzzy galaxy will embrace us, the loving, brothers and sisters in the galaxy, and then we can enter galactic life. How many times have you heard that? You got to be deaf to have said you've never heard that. And that's coming through. Some people take you on trips, in fact, to go out and see ships and have you sign written agreements stating that you must agree that all ETs are good. Look at the whole planet Earth. Is there anywhere where everybody's good? Do you think it's any different? As above, so below. Do you think it's any different anywhere else? So the bad ETs just say they're very effective. So whenever you're getting it from all sources, the good ETs are out there, everybody's good, the warm galactic sources, that's just a PSYOPS. And part of Farsight is we're supposed to be acting different. Now, our side couldn't do the channeling because you wouldn't know who to believe. My side couldn't do channeling, and it would just be one voice different from another voice, and you wouldn't know who to believe. And so we had to do something different. So we had to do a situation where we had our people come into Earth and be born as humans, and then go through the entire human experience, the human educational experience, everything, regain our memories, and then remember who we are and what we're doing. We weren't processed by the amnesia processing system, the so-called death traps, but otherwise we came in just as regular humans. That's legally the only way we can get into this prison. And that's the only way we can operate here. We could not fly in, drop in, and just start talking. We'd be shooting in a matter of seconds, and it would just be an open war. You can't do it. And we wouldn't be able to save the planet. We wouldn't be able to save humanity. So we had to come up with a different strategy, being born here. Now, if you want to see the perfect movie to explain who I am and who a lot of people are at Farsight and so on, just watch the movie starring Sidney Poitier called Brother John. That's exactly who I am. I'm not Brother John, but that's exactly the same situation. Brother John, starring Sidney Poitier, he was born here. He was born as a human. He grew up. He regained his memories. And his job was to go around and basically be a spy. But I'm not a spy, but that was his job. But if you watch the movie Brother John, that's the only way we could get in. That's the only way we could get here and do this job. So, subduing the enemy without fighting, that was a tough one. So how could we do it? We couldn't use the channeling community because they were all occupied with the bad ETs putting in all types of shit. So we had to come in without channeling and just tell the truth. So we invested decades in developing Farsight, developing a huge library at FarsightPrime.com. If you have not subscribed to FarsightPrime.com, you really need to. We had put decades of work, actually going back centuries if you think about it, into making this work. That's our library that we built to teach you and tell you what the true history of humanity is. That's all going to come out eventually this year, hopefully. Now I'm going to give you another quote from Sun Tzu. This is important because you have to know about how to fight your enemy. So the enemy is doing the first quote. If you subdue the enemy without fighting, is the acme of skill. That's what they've been doing to you. Now, here's another one. On your side, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. Now, if you know neither yourself or the enemy, you will succumb in every battle. Same person, Sun Tzu. Now, the basic interpretation of this is that if you go into battle knowing yourself and the enemy, knowing what the enemy is doing and knowing yourself, full knowledge, what you're supposed to be translating now is total disclosure, okay? If you know yourself and the enemy, you will be able to defeat the enemy, period, full stop, end of story. Now, complete knowledge is the key to winning. That's why full disclosure is so important. But if you know only yourself, meaning you know yourself, but you don't know the enemy, you don't know what the bad ETs are doing, then you have only a 50-50 chance of winning. That's what Sun Tzu is saying. Now, if you don't know yourself, you don't know who you are, and you don't know the enemy, you don't know what they're doing, you're going to lose every single time. That's what Sun Tzu is saying. So the basic interpretation is know your enemy, but also know yourself. Farsight role is to help you know both. Who you are, that's the library at farsightprime.com, and the enemy, to let you know who they are, what they're doing. All right, and I have connected this to channeling, so let me move on. It also relates to shadow banning by Google. Now, I have gotten, after I talked about shadow banning and on Farsight, I had a bunch of people write to me. They do web design stuff, and they're CEOs of this and that and the other, and they were saying, oh no, you just need to optimize the web stuff. We know how to do that. Let us do that for you. Folks, it goes way beyond that. So I want to show you how the PSYOPS works from the inside of for example, Google shadow banning. So let me show you this, and I'm going to talk you through this. This is something that I normally would not be able to see because I have to take you through something with Google that only I have access to, their stuff. So anyway, so let me do that now, and then I'll talk you through it. What you're looking at now is the Google Search Performance Console. And these are over the last 3 months at Farsight. And this includes total clicks, and also it includes things like the performance, the overall performance, and the click-through rate, the CTR rate, and so on. And it also tells you the level that Farsight is being showed at. When you do a search for remote viewing, where is Farsight in the search engine? So if you look at the top, you see Farsight remote viewing. Now the CTR, which is the click conversion rate, is over 60%. That's huge. So Google knows damn well that people are looking for remote viewing with Farsight. It's over 60%. Normally 6% or 7%, that's high. 60% is right off the scale. All right, so now I'm going to move, and I'm going to take away some of the lines here. So now you're only going to be seeing, I'm going to take away some of the extra lines until the only thing you're actually seeing is the, there we go. This is the actual ranking, the actual level, the number of, the rate, where we are when you do a search, where we actually are. Now, if you look on the left-hand side of the graphic, that means there's nothing there. That means when you search for remote viewing for the last 3 months, you saw nothing. That means no matter how, it doesn't matter how far you looked in the search engine, you would not find us. Okay? And so that's really something. And then when I started to talk about it on this channel here with the Farsight Spotlight, there was a bit of a pickup. Now on the right, you're starting to see that there's a dip that happened. Well, there was a guy in New Zealand. Now, if you see the actual ranking was 100. So they were putting Farsight at the 100 level. Now, there's about 10 spots where you see us per page. So 100 is 10 pages in before you can actually find us if you search for remote viewing. But there was a guy in New Zealand who was actually really focused on getting us. And that's where that dip was. The AI that runs Google search engine was told to keep people away from us. And so when that guy went, he went past the 10, he went past 10 pages and kept on searching. What was actually happening in that situation is that people started to search, and then Google wanted to keep the ranking sort of low. Now, on average, it was around 10, but when you actually search for, that's why if you search for Farsight remote viewing, you have to actually put the word Farsight in. We're 10 spaces down. There were 9 people above us. But when you actually search for remote viewing, we're at the 100th spot. But there was this one guy in New Zealand who was searching for remote viewing and trying to find us because of this program, probably. And then the AI that was controlling the search engine changed it so that it put us in the spot of 250. That's 10 pages, 10 listings per page. That's 250. That means 25 pages down. So as he was searching in in New Zealand for us, Google was putting us further and further and further down to keep one step ahead of him until they finally stopped at 25 pages down, ranking of 250. So you see, this is not passive. This is not just passive what they're doing. They're consciously going after that. And again, you see that dip, you can start to see the dip again. And then this is for the ranking for that. And that big dip that goes down at the bottom of that dip is 250. That's where it says. And what's happening is that's because this guy in New Zealand was actually searching for us, and he was actually pushing the thing, and he actually got it to respond. So I was really pleased that actually happened, because that gave us a chance to show this. All right. So this right here is Bing. If you look at Bing, we're number 4. So we're right at the top. We're right after Gaia and so on, like that. So that's where we are there. So this tells you that the ranking stuff, it's not something where it's just like bad luck or we didn't optimize the search engine. We have a really great person who does the web stuff. He knows everything about everything. And so it's an active thing. And you can see that Bing doesn't have that. We are the largest venue for remote viewing anywhere on the planet, without question. Bing has us right up there at the top, above absolutely anybody. Gaia is higher, but they're not like teaching remote viewing. They're just, they're doing their Gaia stuff and so on. So, and they put Wikipedia higher. But other than that, in terms of people doing it, we're like right at the top. Sometimes with Bing, you can find us on the second page. Every once in a while, it goes that way. But typically on the first page, we're at the very top. And, and Google is actually trying to hide us. And if you try to search for us by just using remote viewing, they make it harder and harder the harder you search. So the basic idea of that is that Google, they're the largest search engine, so obviously they're going to get the most attention from the powers that be. And they are seeking to keep the public ignorant of one side of this. And they're minimizing the chance of a rebellion that way. So the connection that they have to the military people and intelligence people that work collaborate with the ETs that we are opposed to, they have a strong influence there. So that's what's going on. The military and other people, they're not so concerned about Bing. It's not as big a search engine, but Google is really big. So if the public does not know what the powers that be are doing, they hide it so you can't see the process, then the public will also not know its own situation. And if the public doesn't know its own situation, defeat is certain. So that's what, going back to Sun Tzu, is if you don't know your enemy and you can't get the information about your enemy, your defeat is getting pretty close to certain. If you don't know yourself and you don't know your enemy. And of course, we've talked about yourselves, with regard to people that are on this planet. This is a prison planet, and everyone who dies gets processed through the amnesia processing system, the so-called death traps. So you don't have your memory, and you don't have your ability to get your memories back very easily. All right, now let me tell you another Sun Tzu thing. Confront them with annihilation, and they will then survive. Plunge them into a deadly situation, and they will then live. When people fall into danger, they are then able to strive for victory. Okay, now I'm talking about my side. My side's what we call the good ETs, have managed to take all these crises that the bad ETs have been generating, but wanting to string them out over many years to keep humanity constantly in a state of turmoil, and we push them all into one time period. So you're going to see 2025 be a crisis year. It's going to look like everything is coming apart, and you're going to be able to see it live. And the whole idea is, if you confront people, let me read the thing from Sun Tzu again, confront them with annihilation. If they think, oh my gosh, this is the end, then they will live. Plunge them into a deadly situation, and they will live. When people fall into danger, they are able to strive for victory. That's what we're trying to do, everybody. We're trying to get you to wake up. And you're not going to wake up unless we break down the information control systems that the bad ETs have put in place, which I just showed you is working through the Google search consoles, that you could actually see what the actual shadow banning, how it's actually working behind the scenes. It's not a passive thing. It's a quite active thing. All right. So now let me switch gears and talk a little bit about who I am and who we are, so I can sort of put some flesh on these bones and explain what we're doing and why we're doing this. When you die, you don't die, of course. Your body doesn't mean you're perishing. When you die physically, you are alive, just as alive as you are today, but you no longer have a physical body and you disconnect. And then in the death trap situation, you always see the light when you die. The light is technology. The light attracts you. It's a very powerful, warm light that pulls you in. It feels great, and you're attracted to the light. And then when you get sucked in, you can't. The farther you go in, if you fight against it, it's like sticky stuff. You can't get out. You're zapped with an electric bolt that's way higher voltage than lightning. You're rattled. You can't be killed. A person cannot die. We don't use the word soul or spirit. We use Isby, someone who is for the purpose of being. We are all Isbys. It's impossible to kill an Isby. You cannot die. And if a religion tells you we can grant you eternal life if you do X, Y, and Z, that's bullshit. No one can kill you in the first place. No one can grant you something that you've already got. And so the issue is that when that death traps processing happens, you lose your memory, you lose your remote viewing capabilities, you lose your telepathy capabilities, which is what everybody in the galaxy uses to communicate. And when this all happens, you get then an interaction with an AI, a being that comes out and looks like a nice person, says, we've been discussing your case with the Council of Elders. You see the Council of Elders over there? Yeah, you're an important person. And we think you should go back to sort of work on some personality problems. Remember those arguments you had with your mother and your sister and so on? We think, but it's up to you. It's free will. Well, with no memory and no telepathy, no capabilities for remote perception, you inevitably say, sure, sounds good to me, and you go back. So it recycles people into this prison. All right. Now, and if you do get your memories back, that's a problem for the prison, because then you'll stage a rebellion. So one of the things that has been built into the human process is a short lifespan. The ETs, I've told you before about my own background with the ETs, they live a long time. When I go up to the ships, and I told you that does happen, we're not allowed, I didn't want to ever talk about that, but they told us no secrets. But when I do go to the ships, those guys, they live a long time. Those bodies hang around forever. And when they need another body, they can get one. But the point is, those bodies don't expire. Now, if you think about your life, you're sort of working to get your education done and then to get some type of professional stuff done. You're not really ready to start till you're about 30. And then when you have a couple decades into it, 50, you're starting to think about, winding things down. By the time you're 60, you're just a few years later, you're talking about retirement. 65, you're cutting things off. 70, you're dead. I mean, that's a very short lifespan. And you don't have the ability to remember who you are because everything is crammed into such a short few years. So the ETs normally live much longer than that. And so to gain your memories back, you have to be able to live longer. So the genetics of the human genetics has been designed to have a short lifespan. Now, one of the things they do to that is to have they burn the bodies hot. The genes are designed to burn the bodies hot. So they burn, it's like a furnace. You're burning sugars and oxygen combined, and that's why you have a temperature, and so it burns the bodies hot. When you touch an extraterrestrial, Gray or some of the others, just humans like us, just humanoids up on the ships, they're cool to the touch. They don't have the same temperature as we do. Human bodies are hotter, and they burn out faster. That's one of the main reasons that human bodies wear out. It's just faster. And so it's the genes are sort of designed to sort of wear people out. The bodies get out, so it processes you more quickly through the amnesia processing system, or the so-called death traps. The issue with how long you live is relating to me also, because I can't do my job. The requirement for my job was to be able to live as a human, to be born as a human, have a human mother, go through the human educational system. My son was the same thing. He was supposed to come after I came, so I set things up, and then he came. And we were both coming in as humans, and he got his full memories back more quickly than I did. I had a little bit more of a struggle. But we got all of our memories back. Again, if you want to if you want to watch the movie Brother John starring Sidney Poitier, that would be a good way to sort of put this into perspective. But still, it's the same situation. Is we couldn't do our jobs if we expired, if we died at 70 years old. It's like 70 years old, ridiculous. ETs live, like an average is 150 years. I mean, they live a long, long time, but 70 is like crazy, ridiculous. And so I had to change the speed at which I'm aging so that I would last a lot longer. I couldn't change it so that I would last, that this physical body would last as long as an ET body, because they last much, much longer. But I had to be able to manipulate it using human tech to live and be fully productive for at least 120 years. And I'm going to be having a video on what I do. The ETs want me to talk about that as well. So I have to be very careful, because I can't make any type of advice and recommendation for people, because they'd say I'm not a doctor and they could kick us off the air and we wouldn't be able to be doing our job. But I would be allowed to say what I do to sort of let you know. But we don't use any medical type of supplements that you see advertised sometimes. Use this resveratrol or this and the other, nothing like that. There's a way to manipulate the human body so that it ages at an extremely low rate, but it's hard. It's really hard. But I have a job to do, and I do what I'm told to do, and this is what we've done. So there's a lot of guys, especially a lot of older guys, who say, I'm not aging, I'm going really slow, I'm really living a long life. And they're just cheating. They're trying to pick up a girl or something like that. They're just lying. They die when they're 70 years old or 75 years old. It's just, anyway. In Africa, we call them cheating cocks. But anyway, that's it. So there's only one way that it's easy to tell what a person's biological age is. My biological age is around the early 30s. Now, my chronological age is much higher than that. But my biological age is the early 30s. And I'm just aging in an extremely low rate, and I want to show you how you can tell. The only way that's easy to tell is the testosterone level. The testosterone level never lies, because once a person gets to be 30 or 40 chronologically within the normal aging process, the testosterone level starts going down at least 1% a year, and it's just really low, okay? So I'm going to show you, for this presentation, I had my testosterone level checked. I'm only allowed to use standard human text. Believe me, when I go up to the ships, they can cure anything. They can make anything, like do amazing stuff. And don't think that I haven't asked. Like when I get a cold or a flu, you think I don't ask, hey, look, can I have a little help down here? They don't allow me, they don't give me any help. So I can only use human tech. But I'll have a separate video on exactly what I do. But let me actually show you my testosterone level, okay? And then I'll show you in comparison. Now, what you're actually seeing now is a screen that actually has, this is the actual output. I've eliminated my my medical account number and the company that did it for privacy sakes, because I know people watching this will, do things. So, but my total testosterone level is 787. And you'll see my name there. You'll see my age, the chronological age of 72 years old. And you also see my PSI there, which is sort of interesting, but it's 1.2. That doesn't have any relevance to what we're talking about now. That's very low, but still. 787. That's the testosterone level. That's total testosterone. That's how much testosterone my, testicles are actually putting out. Okay. Now, let me actually show you what this means. And for those of you who are interested, I want you to consider going to ChatGPT and checking with ChatGPT everything that I'm going to tell you now. Okay? So I've actually showed you what my age is chronologically, and I've actually showed you what my testosterone level is. Okay? Now, my total testosterone, as you're watching right now, my total testosterone level is 787. And that's nanograms per deciliter, which is how they do this. Now, the average testosterone level for a healthy 72-year-old male is 350 nanograms per deciliter, 350. And it never exceeds 500, period. It never exceeds 500. Okay, so for a 72-year-old male, the normal testosterone level average worldwide is 350, and it just doesn't go above 500. You might find a rare bird in there, but they're probably doing testosterone supplementation or something. I have never taken any testosterone supplementation, anything, nothing artificial. I take vitamins, that's it. And I'm going to go through what my vitamins are, but all right. But just the normal vitamins, one a day type of vitamins, and other supplements to make sure I have D3, zinc, just vitamins and minerals, stuff like that. Nothing dealing with testosterone. All right, now the standard deviation for a 72-year-old population is 110 nanograms per deciliter. If you know anything about statistics, the standard deviation will make sense. But the number of standard deviations that my testosterone level is, which is 787, from the average for a 72-year-old population of 350, that's 3.97, or 4 standard deviations above the mean. That's huge, folks. That is absolutely huge. 4 standard deviations, and for a 72-year-old male. Now, the probability of this occurring by chance is 0.0036%. That's way less than 1%. And that's the same as 1 in 27,800 people. It's like impossible. It never happens. All right. Now, if you use the testosterone level as a proxy for biological age, someone with a total testosterone level of 787 would be a healthy male in their 20s to early 30s. So if you told any doctor that the testosterone level of some person is 787, they would immediately say, okay, the person's between 20 and 35. End of story. And then if you said it was 72 years old, they say you're lying. It never goes above 500. Okay, so given the rate of my current aging, the early 30s would be a good estimate of my biological age. My estimated lifespan at this rate would be approximately 120 years, which is about 50 years from now. Okay. Now, I kept that up there for a while so that you could take notes, and you could also watch when this comes out as a video that's recorded, you can also take notes. And you can write those things down and put them into ChatGPT and ask them. Ask it, what is the story with this? And let ChatGPT tell you. That's where I got a lot of this information to begin with ChatGPT. I'm a statistician. I'm a mathematician, so I know how to calculate the probabilities myself. But so that I couldn't be accused of, of fixing the probabilities, I use ChatGPT, so it can be a neutral person. And I use the normal distribution to actually get the probabilities associated with that. So my actual aging rate is about lower to mid 30s. Okay. Now look at me. Do I look like I'm 72? Do I act or sound like I'm 72? Is anything related to what you see 72? In terms of energy and doing stuff, do 72-year-old people do what I do? Does that make sense? So I have to keep doing this. I can't end at this age. I have to keep doing this for another 50 years at least. I'm expecting most of the turmoil to be over in a year or two. But then the issue is, how do you recover a planet of zombies? How do you just can't slap them in the face and say, they were bad ETs and you kick them off the planet and now you got to recover. I'm going to have to stick around for at least 5 decades to be able to help with the transition. My son's going to be working with that. The other people at Farsight, we're expanding into Africa and Asia. There's a lot of stuff that needs to be done for the transition to get people to be okay after that. You can't just wake somebody up out of a coma and just sort of say, okay, now you go home now, you're okay now. It's a big deal to wake up a planet. But what I have just done is given you information that I am a statistical anomaly. That's impossible. Now let me say this. I wouldn't be a statistical anomaly that's impossible if I wasn't here to do this job. Now I'm going to ask you to put 2 and 2 together. What is the probability? I'm not going to give you the numbers for this. You figure it out. What is the probability of somebody with such an extreme aging outlier rate? And I've just showed you what it is. The testosterone level tells you the biological age better than anything else. By the way, if somebody comes to you and says, I'm aging real slow, I'm going to live to be 120 or something, ask them to go to the doctor, get a testosterone level check, and let them show you. That will tell you they're lying. Okay? And if they're like in their 70s, it's going to be something like 300 or something like that. It might be 200, 350, most 500 and if they're lucky, but nothing like 700 and nothing like 800. Okay. So what's the probability of someone with such an extreme outlier, aging outlier, is also the CEO of the only group on planet Earth that created the Farsight library using remote viewing to recreate the true history of humanity? What's the probability that somebody with my aging rate is also the CEO of the only group on the whole planet that did that? And who has a son who was also not processed by the amnesia death trap system and retains his birth memories, his pre-birth memories. Now, the slowing of the aging rate has to be really, what I do can be started at any time, but the slowing of the aging rate so that it lasts to 120 years easy has to be started around the age of 30, which would have been in the early 1980s for me. What's the probability that the CEO of Farsight would have known to start that at that exact age by accident? I mean, put 2 and 2 together, people. This isn't by accident. Now, the conclusions are that the claims of continuous extraterrestrial physical contact throughout life is reasonable. Those are the claims I've said. That's reasonable given these extreme biological statistical outliers. These are not like even close. It's not even possible. But I'm telling you, these numbers are just not possible under normal circumstances. So I have to be telling you the truth. I've showed you the actual data. The probability of Farsight being an accurate library of new material on Earth for Earth humans to absorb thus is very high. I'm pulling out all the stops at this point because 2025 is the crunch year. You have to know everything. The recovery period for humanity is going to span decades. And I will be needed, my son will be needed, but also I will be needed during this entire time for like at least 50 years. It's simply not a matter of kicking the bad ETs off the planet. You're going to be left with an entire planet of 8 billion zombies. Their waking process needs to be handled very, very, very carefully, and I have to be involved in that. So we have a war, a real war. The real fighting starts psychologically with PSYOPS. And it's been hard for people to know what the bad ETs are doing. So what I tried to do in this presentation is show you an example of what the bad ETs are doing, which is manipulating stuff, information that you get. So I've showed you what actually happens with Google behind the scenes, so you can actually see them trying to keep the information from you. So that when you actually search for remote viewing, they're actually moving the Farsight connection, the Farsight link farther and farther and farther down to the point of it's 250 at the ranking. It's like 25 pages in. Only that guy in New Zealand was able to find us. Fortunately, it doesn't happen with. It's actually comical in a sense because our YouTube stuff is we're almost having 100,000 subscribers. We're winning despite the shadow bannings, but still, it's anyway. So we have a war, and the war right now is psychological. It's PSYOPS. PSYOPS stuff. It's PSYOPS versus PSYOPS versus PSYOPS. And you have to remember what Sun Tzu said. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. So they're trying to do it without fighting first. But if we can get a revolution from below, then you're going to see some real fighting. Now, you've actually, some of the videos that you can see that are coming out, you can see them on Instagram feeds and things. Some of the ships have actually started shooting at each other. So they're actually, you can actually see some, like big laser type blasts coming from above, shooting down, and you can see actually like certain lights coming forward, and they're honing in on an ET ship, and then they get close, you see a flash, and then the ET ship flies off. I mean, you're actually seeing confrontation now, and it's not being hidden with stealth tech. You're actually able to see it. So what we actually need now is a period to stabilize the population. So I've actually covered a lot of material today. Let me see how long I've gone. Almost an hour. This is really what I wanted to talk with you about today. I have given you what I think is undeniable proof that something is really going on, that I am what I said I am, that Farsight is what it says it is, and I showed you the the idea of showing you the medical stuff was a way of sort of saying, look, if you don't believe it, if you don't believe what we're saying is true, then your normal response would be, well, why should we believe you? You're just like everybody else. You're just saying a story. They don't have medical stuff like that. And it's not even close. It's not like one standard deviation away or two. Like 4 standard deviations off the scale, it doesn't even come close. So you can say, well, gosh, Courtney, okay, somebody is aging really slowly. It's a planetary anomaly. It just doesn't happen. You're going to see me acting exactly the way I am acting now 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now. I'll give you another thing. When they did these, the studies that they have done with rats, for example, with caloric restriction, extreme caloric restriction combined with super supplementation of vitamins. I'm going to have a video just on that type of stuff. They live, just the rats, with, at least the human equivalent of 120 years. But it's hard on the rats, but they do it. And the male rats are still chasing the lady rats at 120 years old, human equivalent. And there's nothing wrong with that. I like chasing the lady rats. So, sorry, my jokes are sort of funny, but I think they're funny. Most people think they're ridiculous. Okay. Anyway, that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something from it. And I know there's going to be a lot of people sort of saying there must be lying going on. Somebody's going to probably say I have doing testosterone replacement therapy or something like that. There's nothing like that. I've never done anything like that ever. But that's just the aging rate that I have. And 10 years from now, I'll be looking and acting the same. Acting the same is what you'll be seeing. And 20 years from now, the same. Nothing's going to be changing. And 30 years from now, it'll be the same. I guess I could be shot, but other than that, it's going to be the same. 40 years from now, and around 50 years from now, I'll probably think about heading off. But that's sort of a while. But that's how long it takes for you to get anything done with a real life. You can't die when you're 70 and get anything done. The only thing you can do is maybe have a retirement fund. By the time you get your retirement fund together, you die and you don't even... It's so stupid. Dying when you're 70 years old is crazy. Nobody out there in the galaxy dies when they're 70 years old. But here, this is the way they work. This is how they do it. Anyway, so that's it for today, folks. You've been a great audience. Let me actually get off of... let me actually see what is going here with this. Wow, we have 1,700. The live stream gets more and more every time we do one of these things. That's huge. Live streams that have 1,700 is really big. Anyway, so this is going to go up as a video on the Farsight channel. Farsight, please subscribe to our channel, Farsight. We're close to 100,000. If you can help push us over, that'd be great. If you haven't subscribed to farsightprime.com, now is the time to do it. The actual price of farsightprime.com is going to be going up for new subscribers in about a week. So it's better if you subscribe now, because then you have permanently locked in to the cheaper price, the lower price. It's cheap. It's free anyway, because it's essentially free. It's like $9.99, $10 now, which is basically free, and it's going up just a few dollars to $12.99 for new subscribers. But it will not be affecting current subscribers at all. So if you're already a subscriber to farsightprime.com, don't even worry about it. Don't think about it. There's no price increase. Period. It's over. It just keeps on going like that. So if you haven't yet subscribed to farsightprime.com, now's a good time to do it. In about a week, we're going to have to, the price increase is going to go up. But it's a very small price increase anyway. But anyway, just letting you know, if you want to do it, now's the time. Now is better than a week from now. Anyway, so, but that's the big library. And the reason it's going up is because prices have been going up for us, and we have to pay for things, the lights, cameras, and everything, and they've been raising their prices. And we've gone for years without any price increases. This is a very small price increase, but still, I just want to let you know it's you can avoid it just by doing it now rather than later. And if you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and push us over 100,000, that would be great. That'll be really interesting to see what YouTube does with us, because they've been so active in shadow banning us. It'll be interesting to see when they want to. We're supposed to get a plaque that goes on the YouTube channel at 100,000. We'll see what actually happens. But you've been great. This has been a great audience. I really love you all. You've been doing really great. I love doing these things. And by the way, I am going to have a health issue. I have to tell people what I do. It is really fun to feel like you're 25, 30 years old and to live like it. It's really fun. You can actually keep on surfing. I love surfing. I just surf all the time. I just love surfing. And, I surf and I run. It's fun running. I love running. I don't like running on treadmills, but I run half an hour every other day, 4 7.5-minute miles, and it's just fun being able to do that type of stuff and ride motorcycles. I'm pretty good with a motorcycle. I have my pilot's license, but I'm not current with flying, so I don't. If you ever enter a plane and see me in the cockpit, get off the plane. You'll die. I'm not a good pilot. But motorcycles I'm good at. Surfing I'm good at. Anyway, so that's it for today. And I was going to mention a little bit about the supplements, so no one sort of says you're taking strange supplements. So let me just go through really quickly what the supplements are. I was going to bring them down and show them to you. I take the Solgar VM75 multiple. That's the multiple I take. And then I take 2,000 IUs of vitamin D3. I take 2 capsules of a vegetarian formula that's made out of algae for omega-3. One in the morning, one in the evening. And I take a calcium and magnesium supplement in the morning and in the evening. And let me see, what else do I take? I take vitamin B12, of course, once a day because I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat any meat. I don't eat any mammals, period. There's a reason for that, but I don't want to go into that right now. Some of the doctors that I have gone to, they take everything I do seriously, and I'm in the Emory medical system. I'm the only one in the entire Emory medical system, which is one of the world's biggest, that has ever done this. So I'm sort of an anomaly. And my main primary care physician, he just thinks it's all crazy. But he does. He's really great. He does all the testing. He does everything. He's happy with that. And but other doctors, one time I broke my leg, and that was a real interesting thing. This was the stupidest thing that I ever did, but I'll tell you how it happened. It was like, I don't get any sun. I don't get any solar exposure because the sun damages this Caucasian skin for these bodies. Anyway, So I protect myself from the sun. So I always, when I go jogging, I'm all covered up. I look like, the Muslim women that have these chodars. In Swahili, we call them buis, where everything's covered, but only the eyes are visible. I sort of like that, but with jogging equipment and stuff like that, so I can't really see out there. And so my neighbors always think that's just Courtney. he just does that weird stuff when he's jogging. But the sun was out one day, and all the neighbors were out, and I was out jogging my normal way. And instead of sort of laughing at me, they were all saying, "Yay, Courtney!" And I was so excited about being applauded by my neighbors. I raised my hands up like this, like I was an Olympic runner turning around, and I was twisting around. And there were so many people, clapping from all different directions. I turned around and I twisted around, and my legs got all twisted around, and I just sort of collapsed. I fell. I tumbled over my own twisted legs while I was bowing to all the accolades, and I fell with my legs twisted really hard, and I broke my leg. Anyway, so I have to take an Uber to the hospital. Some people carried me back to my house, and they put me, and I called up the Uber, and the Uber took me to the hospital. And I crawled into the Uber, and I said, "Take me to the Emory Hospital." So I get to the Emory Hospital, and I crawl out. They brought out a wheelchair, and I brought out. And then they were going to put like artificial stuff inside. They took an X-ray, and they said I was going to put. I said, "Look, I got an issue with my. Can you just listen to me out?" And I had to explain my whole aging rate. And I said, "You just can't put like stuff in me that's going to wear out in 10 years because I got to be able to go, 50 years. And I know it's hard to believe. The doctors, they went and pulled my entire file. They didn't believe what I was talking about. They pulled the whole file out. They looked the whole thing over, and they came back and they said, "Okay, this is different." Have to look at, and they said, "Okay, we believe you. This is different. We looked at all your results, okay. So what's this? You're going to be around for how long?" I said, "At least 50 years. I can't just you can't put you can't put a fix in here that's going to wear out in 10 or 15 years." And they said, "Okay, then the only thing that will work is your bones are broken, but they're in the right place. So if you don't move for 6 weeks, you'll be all right. You can sit." So Aziz goes on, I think he went to Sam's Club, and he ordered a chair, one of those recliner chairs, really easy. And he said, "Okay, Dad, you're going to sit for 6 weeks." So I had to sit in this recliner chair for 6 blankety-blank weeks. Just sort of like I couldn't move. And because they couldn't, the bones were in the right place. They weren't able to go in and sort of fix them the way they normally would have wanted to fix them and put metal pieces and stuff like that. So I just had to, anyway, so it fixed. And 6 weeks later, I go back to the doctors, and I show them my stuff. They took the x-rays and said, "You're all fixed now. Everything's good to go." And then I went back a couple months after that, and I was showing them my stretching, and I told them I was back to running, half an hour, 7.5 miles every other day. And they said, "This is great, this is great." So those doctors took it really seriously, and I was very appreciative of those. So everything healed perfect. But I really learned how stupid I can be when people start praising me, putting my hands up, "Yay, thank you so much," and tumbling over my own feet. It was really quite embarrassing. And so I told you I would tell you a secret today. Let me see if people are actually enjoying that. Okay, well, anyway, people are starting to go down, so let me stop now, and I will see you next week, all right, everybody? I have told you the important stuff. You know the truth of the matter, of what's going on, and this is a war, folks. We're in the PSYOPS part of the war, but it's a real, real war. And you're going to see the shooting part later. It's starting with some of the Instagram feeds. You can actually see it, a little bit happening, but it's a real war. I'll see you next week, and I will keep you informed with everything, all right? Take care, everybody.